To the channel of my colleague Agnes Thompson, and my name is Sophia. I will share my story with you. Subscribe to us.
My name's Sophia. I'm 72 years old, and for most of my life, I believed I understood people. I'd navigated personal sorrows and global conflicts with quiet resilience, always emerging unbowed. The deepest wound I bore was the loss of my beloved husband, George, 20 years past. I poured my remaining love into raising our only son, Daniel, who I considered my future, my pride. Our modest two-story home, nestled amidst a vibrant rose garden, was more than just brick and mortar. It was a sanctuary, built by George and me with our own hands, infused with our dreams. Every detail whispered stories of our life. I intended this house, our legacy, for Daniel, a secure foundation for his future. Daniel, my son. My love for him was an all-consuming fire that often blinded me to his subtle flaws. He was easily swayed, perhaps too focused on material gain. He married Melissa, a woman with a predatory gaze and insatiable ambition. She saw people not as individuals, but as stepping stones in her relentless ascent. I tried to voice my deep-seated concerns to Daniel, but he dismissed me as old-fashioned. "Mom," he'd retort, "Melissa simply desires what is best for our family. She's just ambitious." And I, heartbroken, would relent, wanting to believe him, wanting his happiness even if it meant stifling my own intuition. The insidious unraveling of my world began subtly, approximately 6 months ago. My health, usually robust, began to subtly falter. Nothing life-threatening, but my doctor, Dr. Evans, recommended a comprehensive workup, endless appointments, tests, scans. This vulnerability was Daniel and Melissa's cue. Like opportunistic vultures, they descended with startling swiftness, suddenly becoming exceptionally attentive. They drove me to every appointment, often waiting for hours, feigning profound concern. They arrived laden with groceries, prepared nourishing meals, and fussed over my comfort with an intensity they hadn't exhibited in years. Melissa, who usually found excuses to avoid my home, was bustling about, meticulously checking my medication. I confess with shame, deeply touched. "You were wrong," I chided myself silently. "They truly care." My fragile heart softened, making me tragically vulnerable to their meticulously orchestrated plan. One dreary Tuesday afternoon, Daniel arrived alone, a sleek black briefcase in hand, looking unusually grave. He sat me down in George's old armchair, a place of comfort, now about to witness my profound betrayal. His voice, when he spoke, was soft, a conspiratorial whisper, laced with practiced empathy. "Mom," he began, "Dr. Evans, he telephoned me. About your heart. It's really quite serious." My own heart gave a painful lurch. A cold dread crept in. "What exactly are they saying, Daniel?" I managed. He sighed dramatically. "They said, you might not have very much time left. And with all these new medical bills piling up, the house could tragically be at significant risk if something, God forbid, were to happen. It's truly about protecting your assets, Mom. Ensuring your legacy remains intact for the family." He then, with slick ease, produced a formidable stack of official-looking documents. The fine print was an indecipherable blur to my aging eyes, designed to confuse. "Mom, Melissa and I have been thinking deeply about this," he continued, his voice shifting to an urgent concern. "To protect your assets, to make sure everything is taken care of for us, for the family, just in case, we truly believe it would be best if we handled some of these financial matters. We can consolidate your existing debts, perhaps even take out a modest loan to cover your immediate medical expenses, so you don't have to worry." I squinted uncertainly. "Loans? Daniel, I don't have any significant debts. And I have my savings." My modest savings, accumulated over decades, were my security, my fiercely guarded independence. He waved his hand dismissively. "Oh, Mom, you know how these complicated things are. Hidden fees. Your savings are simply not liquid enough for emergencies. This is merely a precaution, Mom. A small amount, really. Just enough to ensure your legacy is absolutely secure for us, for your family, after you're gone." He continued, painting a vivid picture of impending financial chaos and his noble efforts to avert it. He spoke of stability, of security, of my comfort in my final days. The phrase "final days" pierced me like ice, a chilling echo of his true intentions. But his apparent devotion disarmed my skepticism. He insisted it would be quicker online, needing only my signature and basic details. He navigated a tablet, guiding my trembling hand to sign multiple times. I signed. I trusted him. He was my son. "This merely authorizes me to act on your behalf for some financial matters," he declared. "Think of it as simply preparing for the inevitable." The inevitable. The word hung heavy, a chilling premonition. A cold knot of unease tightened, but I pushed it down, burying it under layers of maternal love. He was my son. He would never intentionally hurt me. I affixed the last signature, feeling a pang of utter surrender. He smiled, a wide, relieved, and now, in retrospect, sickeningly predatory smile, and patted my hand. "Don't you worry about a thing, Mom. We'll take care of everything." He left swiftly. A strange, heavy quiet settled over the house, humming with unspoken truths. I tried to shake off the feeling that something was deeply amiss, but it clung to me. Over the next few interminable weeks, Daniel and Melissa's visits, so frequent during my health scare, dwindled to almost nothing. Their phone calls were brief, filled with hurried excuses. My desperate attempts to reach them were met only with unanswered calls, messages that were never returned. The attentive care, the feigned concern, it all vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving a stark, unsettling void. Then, the first ominous cracks appeared. A thick, official-looking letter from an unfamiliar bank, addressed to me, detailing a substantial personal loan. My hands trembled. Then another and another, each from a different institution, each detailing a new, enormous loan taken out in my name. My heart hammered. This wasn't small amounts, these were astronomical sums that felt utterly impossible for me to ever repay. I tried desperately to call Daniel. His phone went straight to voicemail. Melissa's too. Panic, cold and sharp, began to truly set in. The authorizations, the streamlining, it all clicked into place with agonizing clarity. He hadn't been protecting me, he had been systematically, cold-bloodedly robbing me. Using my identity to take out loans that I would be responsible for. His chilling words echoed, "You're going to die soon anyway." The pain wasn't just physical, it was a searing wound in my very soul, a profound, unimaginable betrayal. My own son. How could he? I felt foolish, utterly devastated. My fortress was crumbling, brought down by his hand. I left desperate, pleading messages. No response. The silence that followed was deafening, the silence of utter disregard. For a few harrowing days, I was adrift in despair, barely eating or sleeping, haunted by impending ruin. The house felt cold and empty, mocking my trust. Photos of a younger Daniel twisted into cruel mockeries of a love that had apparently never been real for him. But then, a tiny spark flickered within me. A defiant ember of the old Sophia. The one who had survived wars, who had buried her husband, who always found a way. Despair slowly receded, giving way to a simmering, righteous rage. He thought I was merely old, frail, and on my way out. He thought he could take everything and walk away unpunished. He thought I would simply lie down and die, leaving him a mountain of debt. He had made a grave mistake. He had fundamentally underestimated me. He had underestimated the resilience forged in a lifetime of hardship, the quiet strength that had carried me through every storm. He had profoundly underestimated a mother's fury, especially when her deepest trust is so cruelly shattered. I gripped the latest loan notice, my knuckles white. My heart still ached, but now beat with defiance. I wasn't going to let him get away with it. Not 1 cent. He thought he had planned this perfectly? He was about to learn a very painful lesson. And it wouldn't involve begging or tears. It would involve something far more precise, something he would never see coming. He had played a dangerous, high-stakes game. The very next morning, I made a decisive phone call to Sarah Jenkins, my late husband's niece. A sharp, incisive, no-nonsense lawyer renowned for her keen intellect and unshakable sense of justice. She lived 3 states away, but I knew she was the only one I could truly trust, the only one who would grasp the immense depth of this profound betrayal and know precisely what legal avenues to pursue. My voice, as I painstakingly explained the horrifying situation, was calm, unnervingly so. I heard the initial gasp of shock in her voice, followed swiftly by a tightening resolve, a steely determination that mirrored my own burgeoning fury. "Aunt Sophia," she said, her voice firm and clear, "don't you worry. We're going to fix this. Every single penny will be accounted for. And Daniel, he's going to regret this. Deeply. Just tell me everything in meticulous detail. Every conversation, every document you signed, every unanswered call, every financial transaction you remember." As I spoke, recounting every painful interaction, every manipulated signature, every ignored plea for contact, a cold, calculated plan began to meticulously form in my mind, coalescing from the shattered fragments of my pain and Sarah's vast legal expertise. Daniel thought I was merely a senile, easily manipulated old woman, passively waiting for death. He would soon discover, with brutal clarity, that he was terribly, irrevocably wrong. The game, as far as he was concerned, had been easily won. But for me, for Sophia, it had just truly begun. He didn't know it yet, but his carefully constructed world, built precariously on a foundation of lies, greed, and profound betrayal, was about to come crashing down around him with devastating force. And I, Sophia T., the woman he had so contemptuously dismissed, was going to be the silent, implacable architect of its spectacular, inevitable fall. Conversation with Sarah became my singular lifeline, a sturdy, unwavering anchor in the turbulent sea of my despair. Her calm, clear voice was like a soothing balm applied directly to the raw, gaping wound of my heart. "Aunt Sophia," she declared, her tone firm but reassuring, "the first, most crucial step is to obtain a complete, unambiguous picture of precisely what has transpired. I will immediately contact your bank, request comprehensive statements for all accounts, active or dormant, spanning several years. Concurrently, I will conduct an exhaustive investigation of your entire credit history across all 3 major credit bureaus. Following that, we will officially notify each of these bureaus and expeditiously place immediate, unassailable fraud alerts on your name, your date of birth, and your social security number. This critical measure, Aunt Sophia, will effectively and decisively halt any further insidious attempts by Daniel or any other accomplice to take out additional fraudulent loans or open new, unauthorized lines of credit in your name. We are shutting down his access points." The following morning, I awoke with a profound, almost electric sense of renewed purpose, a stark and invigorating contrast to the suffocating despair that had threatened to consume me. I no longer perceived myself as a helpless victim. Instead, a fierce, unyielding resolve, like tempered steel, surged through my veins. I was a fighter, a survivor, a woman forged in the fires of adversity, and this battle, though agonizingly painful, was one I was absolutely determined to win, no matter the cost. I moved through my house with a focused, almost ritualistic energy, a woman on a sacred mission. Every dusty drawer was methodically opened, every forgotten folder meticulously examined, as I systematically gathered every single document I could lay my trembling, yet resolute, hands on, antiquated bank statements, yellowed utility bills, even dusty, forgotten checkbooks. Anything, no matter how seemingly insignificant, that might offer Sarah even a shred of additional, corroborating information. Each piece of paper seemed to be imbued with the bitter taste of Daniel's profound betrayal. But I forced myself to remain focused, to view it not as a chore, but as a crucial preparation for war, a collection of ammunition for the impending legal battle. Days, each stretching into an eternity, blurred indistinguishably into weeks, and with each passing moment, an almost suffocating increase in tension became palpable. The first harbingers of the impending storm arrived in the form of insistent calls from various collection agencies. They were polite but unyielding, demanding payment for loans I had absolutely no knowledge of. Each jarring ring of the telephone, each subsequent, repetitive conversation, was like a fresh jab of a sharp needle, a constant reminder of Daniel's callous deceit. I tried, patiently at first, to articulate the harrowing situation, explaining that I was a senior citizen who had been defrauded by her own son. But their responses were invariably the same. "Madam," they would intone with detached sympathy, "we understand your distress. However, we possess legally binding documents bearing your apparent signature, affirming your responsibility for this debt. Regrettably, you are, by law, responsible for these outstanding debts." My nascent rage, a slow-burning ember that had smoldered for weeks, now began to flare into a roaring inferno, fueled by their bureaucratic indifference. Sarah, true to her every word, worked with an almost superhuman dedication. Our daily phone calls became my psychological lifeline, precious moments of clarity and strategic planning. Each update from her was a carefully measured dose of grim reality, interspersed with vital glimmers of undeniable progress. Aunt Sophia, she confirmed during one particularly difficult call, her voice tight with professional outrage, "It's confirmed. Your son, Daniel, systematically exploited your personal identifying information to secure no fewer than 4 substantial, high-value loans from distinct banking institutions. The cumulative principal amount, Aunt Sophia, is absolutely staggering. It totals almost $250,000. He employed a cunning combination of outright forged signatures on some documents, while on others, he brazenly utilized your genuine signatures, obtained under the deceptive pretense of merely authorizing trivial matters." My heart, already bruised and battered, clenched painfully at the sheer magnitude of his audacious scheme. "And there's more, Aunt Sophia," Sarah continued, her voice growing colder. "He also, with breathtaking audacity, attempted to unilaterally transfer the legal deed to your house, Aunt Sophia, the house you and Uncle George built, directly into his own name. Fortunately, the county property office, thanks to the vigilance of some diligent clerk, flagged the suspicious transaction due to a subtle yet critical inconsistency with the signature. They immediately placed a temporary hold on the entire transfer process, effectively blocking his attempt. It's a sheer miracle, Aunt Sophia, that you never granted him a general power of attorney specifically for the house itself. But this brazen attempt unequivocally demonstrates the absolute, depraved lengths to which he was willing to go. He wanted everything. Not just your money, but your very home. The sheer audacity of it all was a fresh, sickening blow. Not content with plunging me into catastrophic debt, he had dared to reach for the very roof over my head. The thought sent a fresh, chilling wave of icy determination through my bones. He would not have it. He would not take my home. He would not steal my dignity. "Sarah," I declared, my voice now as sharp and unyielding as polished flint, "I want to press criminal charges. I want him to face the full, unmitigated, public consequences of his heinous actions. I want him to understand the irreparable damage he has inflicted. I want justice." "We will, Aunt Sophia," she assured me. "But first, we need to construct an absolutely ironclad case, one that leaves no room for doubt. This is elder financial abuse and aggravated identity theft. I am currently meticulously gathering all corroborating evidence, carefully compiling a precise, irrefutable timeline and obtaining sworn, legally binding statements from each of the affected banking institutions. This isn't merely about recuperating debt. This is about prosecuting a severe, premeditated criminal offense, one that deserves the full weight of the law." Meanwhile, the relentless barrage of calls and letters from debt collectors continued. Each new communication was a fresh stab. But now, when a collector called, I no longer pleaded. I calmly stated, "I am a victim of extensive, malicious identity theft. All communication regarding these fraudulent accounts must be directed exclusively through my legal counsel, Ms. Sarah Jenkins. Her contact information has been provided to your legal department, and any further direct contact with me will be considered harassment." It was strangely empowering to articulate those words, to realize that I was actively fighting back, arming myself with the formidable weapon of the law. I began to withdraw from the outside world. I informed my neighbors that I was experiencing a protracted, debilitating period of ill health, requiring complete rest. I wanted neither their pity nor their intrusive questions. I needed to focus, to conserve every ounce of my dwindling energy for the battle ahead. My beloved rose garden, usually my solace, lay mournfully untended. The once vibrant blooms drooped, weeds encroached. But even this deliberate neglect, this visible sign of my supposed decline, was an integral, calculated part of my plan. I wanted to appear frail, defeated, exactly as Daniel expected me to be. Let him revel in his perceived victory. Let him believe I was truly fading, that his malicious scheme had succeeded without a hitch. One evening, about a month after Daniel had manipulated me into signing those papers, the telephone rang. It was him. His voice, unusually buoyant, almost radiating triumph, grated harshly on my ears. "Mom, just checking in. How are you doing? Still holding up?" The thinly veiled hope in his voice, the barely concealed eagerness for me to confirm my rapid decline, was unmistakable. "Oh, Daniel," I croaked, carefully modulating my voice to sound exquisitely weak, profoundly resigned, and utterly bewildered. It's been so incredibly tough. These endless calls, these terrifying letters. I don't understand any of it. My head aches constantly. I feel so muddled. I don't know what to do anymore. Everything feels so confusing. Don't you worry your pretty little head about a thing, Mom," he chirped, and I could almost hear his smug, self-satisfied smile. "Melissa and I are working on it, tirelessly. It's just a lot of paperwork, you know. Very complicated. You just try to relax. Get your rest. That's all you need to do." He made no offer to come over, no genuine assistance. "I just wish I understood," I murmured, playing my part with chilling precision. "It's all so incredibly baffling. Just leave it all to us, Mom. We've got it completely under control. You focus on getting better. That's all that matters." "All right, Daniel," I sighed, summoning a final, weak front before ending the call. "If you say so. I trust you." I hung up, a cold, grim satisfaction settling deep in my gut. He thought he had me exactly where he wanted me, confused, frail, and utterly trusting. He thought I was just a disposable asset. He had absolutely no idea what kind of storm was quietly, meticulously, strategically brewing beneath my seemingly docile facade. Sarah had, by this point, completed her initial, exhaustive investigation. She confirmed the loans, identified the banks, and found something that made my blood run absolutely cold. Daniel had transferred the vast majority of the loan money, nearly $200,000, into an obscure offshore account under a shell corporation. And then, almost immediately, he had withdrawn a significant portion. Melissa's name, chillingly, was also present on some of the transfer documents, implicating her just as deeply. They hadn't even bothered to hide their tracks particularly well, confident an old woman wouldn't understand. "Aunt Sophia," Sarah explained, her voice now a sharp, professional monotone, "this is textbook money laundering and grand theft. And because it involves an offshore account, it significantly complicates the recovery process, but paradoxically, it also provides us with considerably more legal leverage. We will absolutely involve federal authorities. This is no longer merely a local police matter. This is a serious case for the FBI, potentially even the Department of Justice itself. They will want to make an example of this." That was the pivotal turning point, the moment when the pinch of retribution truly began to take tangible shape. It wouldn't involve physical violence or shouting. It would involve something far more precise, far more devastating, the methodical application of the full, unyielding force of the law. He had considered himself so cunning, so sophisticated, effortlessly taking advantage of his aging mother. But he had made a singular, crucial, and ultimately fatal error. He had grossly underestimated the undeniable power of truth, the unyielding tenacity of an injured mother, and the quiet, brilliant strategic mind of a lawyer utterly determined to serve justice. The calls from the debt collectors, once merely persistent, now intensified dramatically. I continued to steadfastly follow Sarah's instructions, remain calm, articulate my case clearly, and unfailingly refer them to my lawyer. It was like watching a patient spider slowly weave its intricate web around a hopelessly struggling fly. Daniel was the fly, buzzing in his newfound, ill-gotten wealth, utterly oblivious to the threads tightening around him. Then came the first undeniable sign that my quiet act was working. A week or so after Daniel's last call, he made a rare, brief visit to my house. The front door was ajar, and I overheard his agitated voice from the living room, sharp and strained. He was shouting into his phone. "What do you mean, frozen? What assets? No, that's impossible." He slammed his phone down. Melissa tried to calm him, but he pushed her away. "They know, Melissa. Someone knows. My accounts are frozen. All of them." He hadn't seen me, lurking silently in the hallway. A slow, knowing smile spread across my face. Oh, he was just beginning to realize. The ponderous wheels of justice were turning, and they were about to crush his carefully constructed world. Later that same evening, Daniel, looking utterly disheveled and profoundly shaken, knocked weakly on my door. His face was pale, his eyes wide and bloodshot, filled with a raw, desperate fear. He barely managed to compose himself. "Mom," he started, his voice a hoarse, strained whisper. I just got a call from the bank. There's been a terrible mistake. My accounts, all of them, they're frozen. Completely. And they're asking about your loans. The ones you took out." He desperately tried to shift the blame. I simply looked at him, my expression unreadable. I didn't flinch. My silence, I knew, was louder, more accusatory, more devastating than any shouted word. He stammered. "They said something about fraud alerts and ongoing investigations." "Mom, what have you done? What have you done to me?" I just shrugged, a small, innocent gesture that concealed a world of calculated intent. "Me, Daniel? I haven't done anything. You explicitly told me you were taking care of everything, remember? You assured me I didn't need to worry. You even said I was going to die soon anyway, and this was all for the family's needs. I simply trusted you, son. Blindly, it seems. Perhaps that was my only mistake." My voice was soft, almost sweet, dripping with feigned innocence. His face drained of all remaining color, becoming a sickly, mottled gray. He opened his mouth, then closed it, utterly speechless, his mind visibly reeling. The full, horrifying realization, slow and agonizing, dawned on him with a crushing finality. The old woman he had so carelessly dismissed, the mother he had so cruelly betrayed, was not the helpless, senile victim he had so confidently assumed her to be. No, she was, in fact, the precise, implacable architect of his sudden, precipitous downfall. He didn't know it yet, but the full, unforgiving weight of his colossal deception was about to fall upon him, triggered, with an almost poetic justice, by the very person he thought he had so brilliantly outsmarted. Daniel stood there, utterly frozen in disbelief, his face a grotesque mask of dawning horror. The easy confidence that usually defined his demeanor had completely evaporated, leaving behind a raw, exposed vulnerability. He stammered, trying desperately to form words, but nothing coherent managed to escape. His eyes started wildly, avoiding my steady gaze, filled not with dismissiveness, but with a palpable, terrified realization. The helpless, easily manipulated old woman he had so confidently believed he had outsmarted was looking back at him with eyes that held the accumulated wisdom of a lifetime, a chillingly calm resolve, and a profound, silent accusation that resonated deeper than any shouted word. "Mom," he finally managed to croak, his voice a strained whisper. "What are you talking about?" I just tried to help you. The bank's made a mistake. It's all just a misunderstanding." He grasped desperately at straws, his voice cracking with the effort to cling to his crumbling facade. The acrid scent of his rising panic clung to him. I simply shook my head, a slow, deliberate movement that conveyed absolute certainty. "No misunderstanding, Daniel. Just consequences. Pure and simple." I rose gracefully from George's armchair and walked deliberately past him, heading towards the living room, my pace unhurried, a quiet assertion that I was now firmly in control. He followed me, a defeated shadow, his once erect posture slumped with unspoken dread. He half collapsed onto the edge of the antique sofa, the very one I'd sat on that dreadful day he'd first presented those deceptive papers. He looked at me, truly looked at me, not as the doting mother of his youth, but with a new, horrifying understanding. And for the first time, I saw not my son, but the grasping, desperate, and ultimately pathetic man he had become, consumed by an insatiable hunger for easy money. Consequences for what, Mom? I did nothing wrong, he insisted, though his voice lacked any genuine conviction. Daniel, I began, my voice clear and steady. Do you remember that conversation we had, not so long ago? The one where you so casually, so cruelly informed me that I was going to die soon anyway? And that taking out those enormous loans on my name, behind my back, was merely for the family's needs. My words were not a question, but a cold, hard statement of fact, each syllable landing with precise impact. His eyes darted nervously around the room, avoiding my unwavering gaze, wide with a desperate, hunted fear. He started to sweat profusely. Mom, I didn't mean it like that. It was just, I was worried about you. Truly. His words were hollow, ringing with profound insincerity. Worried about me? I scoffed, a dry, humorless sound. Or perhaps worried about how quickly you could get your greedy hands on what you so confidently believed would be an easy $250,000. Do you know what else the family's needs apparently entail, Daniel? Offshore accounts, elaborate shell corporations, and a failed, but incredibly audacious, attempt to brazenly steal the legal deed to my house. The house your father and I built with our own hands, with our life's savings. His jaw dropped, unhinged by the sheer weight of my words. He looked utterly stunned, completely blindsided, as if he had never imagined that I, his senile mother, would ever uncover the full, intricate extent of his elaborate betrayal. How do you know all this? He whispered, trembling with primal fear. Because, Daniel, I stated, my voice gaining strength, I may be old and perhaps a little slower on my feet, but I am not foolish. And I am most certainly not dead yet. I leaned forward slightly, my gaze unyielding, boring into his, demanding acknowledgement. You thought you were so incredibly clever. You preyed on my trust, on my perceived vulnerability, on the deep, unconditional love I had always harbored for you. You thought I would simply lie down and let you bury me under a colossal mountain of fraudulent debt while you lived a life of undeserved luxury, built on my ruin. But you forgot one crucial thing, Daniel. One vital, unforgivable oversight. I paused, letting the agonizing silence hang heavy between us, forcing him to confront the full weight of his actions. You forgot that I raised you. I instilled in you the fundamental difference between right and wrong. I taught you about integrity, about honesty, about the sacred value of family. And I also taught you, perhaps more profoundly, that every action, especially one born of deceit, has an inevitable and often painful consequence. You deliberately took out loans in my name, under false pretenses. Now, those very same loans and your fraudulent activities are under active, thorough investigation. Not just by the local police, Daniel, but by federal authorities. You see, identity theft and elder financial abuse, particularly when they involve such immense sums of money and complex schemes like offshore accounts, are not minor infractions. They are very serious federal crimes, Daniel. Crimes that carry a profound weight of legal repercussions, including lengthy prison sentences. Years, Daniel. Not months. He stumbled backward, as if I had physically struck him, recoiling from the harsh reality of my words. Federal? No, Mom, no, you wouldn't. You can't. I'm your son. His face was utterly ashen. He clutched at his chest, trying to contain the panic that threatened to consume him. Oh, but I can, Daniel. And I have. With the full, unwavering support of my brilliant lawyer, Sarah Jenkins. I watched as the last vestiges of color drained from his face. Your accounts, as you so dramatically discovered, are frozen. All of them. Every single cent you so diligently stole and meticulously funneled away into those obscure offshore havens. The banks, eager to protect their own reputations and recover their funds, are cooperating fully with the federal authorities. My lawyer, Sarah Jenkins, has provided them with undeniable, irrefutable proof of your fraud, including those authorization documents you so carelessly made me sign. The ones that, under expert scrutiny, clearly show your blatant use of my personally identifiable information and, in some cases, your clumsy attempts at forged signatures. He collapsed onto the sofa, burying his face in his trembling hands, emitting a choked, guttural sound of pure despair. No, this can't be happening. Not to me. It is happening, Daniel. And believe me, this is only the very beginning of your reckoning. I continued, my voice unwavering. The money you so confidently believed you had secured, that easy $250,000, it's gone. Completely. Seized as irrefutable evidence in a federal fraud investigation. And that's just the immediate financial aspect of your predicament. You also face severe, unavoidable criminal charges. Charges that, I assure you, carry significant, non-negotiable prison sentences. Years, Daniel. Not months. He looked up, his eyes wide with an almost childlike terror, a raw, naked fear that finally pierced through my hardened shell of anger. Prison? Mom, please. I'm your son. Your own flesh and blood. You can't do this to me. You can't send me to prison. You did this to yourself, Daniel, I countered, my voice still firm, but with a faint tremor of profound sorrow. You made these choices. You deliberately chose greed over family. You chose betrayal over loyalty. You chose to systematically and financially destroy your own mother, the woman who brought you into this world and sacrificed everything she had for you. What did you honestly expect, Daniel? That I would applaud you for your cunning? That I would simply roll over and die, leaving you to inherit a mountain of debt and a clear path to my assets? Just then, the front door burst open with a jarring suddenness, and Melissa stormed in, looking utterly frantic, her perfectly coiffed hair disheveled, her expensive clothes askew. Her usual composure had completely shattered. Daniel, what in God's name is happening? My accounts are frozen too. Every single one. The bank called, they said something about fraud, and they actually mentioned your mother. Her voice rose to a shrill shriek as she pointed an accusatory, trembling finger directly at me, but her eyes, wide with raw fear, were fixed squarely on Daniel. Your wife, I said, addressing Daniel but directing my gaze, cold and direct, at Melissa, was also an instrumental participant in your little scheme, wasn't she, Daniel? Her name is prominently displayed on some of those illegal offshore transfers, isn't it? She was quite happy, wasn't she, to spend my life savings, my security, my hard-earned peace of mind on her lavish whims? Planning expensive vacations, designer clothes, perhaps even a new sports car with my money. Melissa gasped, her face turning an alarming shade of ashen, matching Daniel's deathly pallor. That's a lie. I didn't know the details. He just told me it was business. Her voice was a desperate, thinly veiled attempt at denial. Oh, you knew, Melissa, I stated calmly, my voice cutting through her flimsy excuse like a razor. You knew exactly what you were doing. And you will both face the full, unyielding, inescapable consequences. This isn't just about money, you see. Not anymore. It's about fundamental dignity. It's about basic human respect. It's about the sacred, unbreakable bond of family that you both so casually, so callously, so contemptuously trampled upon for the sake of personal, selfish gain. The next few weeks became an almost surreal blur of intense legal proceedings. Daniel and Melissa were formally charged with multiple, severe counts of identity theft, grand theft, and elder financial abuse. The meticulously gathered evidence that Sarah had compiled was overwhelming, leaving absolutely no room for doubt or defense. The affected banking institutions, eager to recover their stolen funds and, more importantly, to avoid a public relations nightmare, cooperated fully and without hesitation, providing irrefutable documentation of every single fraudulent transaction. The elusive offshore accounts were painstakingly traced, the stolen money located and confirmed as direct proceeds of the elaborate fraud. Daniel and Melissa, facing the grim, inescapable reality of significant prison time, eventually agreed to a plea deal. The terms, negotiated meticulously by Sarah, were harsh but ultimately fair. They would be compelled to return every single cent of the stolen funds, which, thankfully, had mostly been recovered due to Sarah's astonishingly swift and precise legal action. They would then be placed on a strict, supervised probation for an extended period, spanning several years, with stringent financial monitoring to ensure they could never again engage in such fraudulent activities. Furthermore, they were ordered to pay substantial restitution to cover all of my legal costs, the extensive investigative fees, and a considerable sum for the profound emotional distress and suffering they had inflicted upon me. The judge, a stern but ultimately fair woman with a reputation for unwavering justice, made it abundantly clear during the sentencing that they were incredibly, almost miraculously, lucky to avoid immediate jail time, given the severe nature of the charges and the extreme vulnerability of the victim. The day Daniel and Melissa stood in court, their faces drawn, humbled, and etched with genuine fear and shame, was not, for me, a moment of unbridled triumph. It was, instead, a deeply, profoundly sad occasion. To see my son, once so full of promise, so full of vibrant life, reduced to this broken, shamed shell of a man, was a bitter pill to swallow. But it was also, I knew with every fiber of my being, a necessary, unavoidable act of justice. A profound and painful lesson had to be learned, not just by them, but by me as well. The crushing lesson that trust, once so utterly, irrevocably broken, cannot easily be mended, if it ever can be at all. And that some lines, once so deliberately, so callously crossed, leave permanent, indelible scars that time, no matter how long, may never fully erase. After the emotionally draining court proceedings concluded, Daniel, alone this time, his figure slumped with defeat, came to my house. He looked utterly defeated, his shoulders hunched, his spirits seemingly broken. Melissa was conspicuously absent, her absence a stark symbol of their fractured partnership in crime. He stood awkwardly in my living room, unable to meet my gaze, his eyes fixed on some distant point beyond my shoulder, filled with a tumultuous mixture of shame, despair, and a desperate plea for understanding. "Mom," he began, his voice hoarse, raw, barely above a whisper, I am so deeply sorry. I truly don't know what came over me. Melissa, she kept pushing for more money, for more things, and I completely lost my way. I was selfish, blindly greedy. I regret everything I did, every single moment of it. I looked at him, truly seeing the raw, unadulterated remorse in his eyes for the very first time. It was a searing, painful moment for both of us, a raw nerve exposed. The mother in me, the part that had nurtured him, loved him unconditionally, yearned desperately to rush forward, to embrace him, to tell him that it was all okay, that all was forgiven, that we could start anew. But the woman who had been so profoundly betrayed, the woman who had fought tooth and nail to reclaim her dignity, her financial security, her very sense of self, knew better. Some things, once shattered beyond repair, cannot simply be glued back together without visible, painful cracks. Regret is a powerful emotion, Daniel, I said, my voice softer now, tinged with a deep, weary sorrow, but still utterly firm, unwavering in its conviction. I truly hope you learn from this. Not just about the legal consequences, not just about the financial ruin you nearly brought upon yourself, but about the fundamental value of integrity, about honesty, and about the sacred, unbreakable bond of family. You almost destroyed me. You almost destroyed everything your father and I built together, brick by painstaking brick, over a lifetime of love and hard work. He nodded, tears silently welling in his eyes, tracing paths down his now hollowed cheeks. I know, Mom. I was wrong. So incredibly, utterly wrong. I don't expect you to forgive me, not now, perhaps not ever. But I truly hope that someday, you can at least understand that I truly, deeply messed up. That I made a terrible, unforgivable mistake. I didn't offer immediate, unconditional forgiveness. Some wounds, I knew, take a lifetime to heal, if they ever truly do. But I saw a fragile glimmer of hope in his genuine remorse, a tiny spark of the son I had once known. "Go, Daniel," I said, gesturing gently towards the door, a silent, weary dismissal that contained both sorrow and a sliver of hope for his future. "Go and rebuild your life. And this time, for your own sake, for the sake of any future you might have, do it with honesty. Do it with integrity. I'll be here. This is still your home if you choose to make it so through your actions. But know this, things between us will never be the same. Not fully. A piece of trust is forever gone." He left, his footsteps heavy and slow, and the front door closed softly behind him. The house fell silent once more. But this time, it was a profoundly different kind of silence. Not the oppressive, suffocating quiet of despair that had once haunted its halls, but the gentle, comforting hum of peace, a quiet serenity that spoke of justice served and dignity reclaimed. The relentless calls from collection agencies ceased entirely. My credit score, once plummeted to devastating lows, slowly, miraculously, began its arduous journey to recovery, thanks to Sarah's diligent and expert work in having the fraudulent loans systematically expunged from my name. I started tending to my beloved rose garden again. The roses, though they had suffered from neglect, still clung stubbornly to life. I pruned the dead, brittle branches, carefully watered the thirsty roots, and watched with a quiet satisfaction as new, tender buds slowly began to emerge, unfurling their delicate petals towards the sunlight. Just like me, I had weathered the storm. I had stood firm against the betrayal, used my innate wisdom and the sharp legal mind of my niece, and fought for what was right, for what was left of my life. The story of how an old woman, seemingly frail and vulnerable, had so brilliantly outsmarted her greedy, manipulative son and his equally ambitious wife, spread quietly through our small, close-knit community. Though I never spoke of the painful details myself, a quiet current of respect rippled through my neighbors. They looked at me with a newfound admiration, a quiet understanding and unspoken awe in their eyes. I didn't need their pity. I had my dignity back. I had my cherished home, still standing as a testament to a life well lived, a battle bravely fought. And I had the quiet, profound satisfaction of knowing that while I had undeniably lost a piece of my innocence about my own son, I had, in the painful process, rediscovered the immense strength, the unwavering resilience, and the enduring wisdom that resided deep within myself all along. My wisdom, forged in the crucible of years of hardship, polished by a lifetime of experiences, had not faded with age. On the contrary, it had deepened, sharpened, and ultimately saved me. I was Sophia, the survivor, the matriarch, and I was far from finished living. My life, my hard-won legacy, was still very much my own, a testament to enduring strength and the triumph of quiet justice.